Nation Summit in Chicago. Yesterday, he was talking about the state of the world, for the most part. And when he was speaking about reducing carbon emissions by 30% with available technology as an example, he started to take a shot at how the United States has some problems, maybe some mommy issues.
The reason we don't do it is because we are still confused, blind, shrouded with hate, anger, racism, mommy issues. We are fraught with stuff. But the thing that really we have to invest in is people.
As some news outlets suggested wrongly that the comments were about the president, he was clearly speaking about talking about reducing carbon emissions, according to the reportage out of Chicago.
Yeah, there were 650 people there from 41 countries, 17 states, and 100 of them were from Chicago. And he built that facility on the south side of Chicago, where he said he really found out who he was as a person.
Of course, we want to know what you think about mommy issues.
Speaking at the Obama Foundation this week, former President Obama took a thinly veiled swipe at President Trump, saying America's progress is hindered by, quote, hate, anger, racism, and mommy issues. You can't make this stuff up. Take a look.
The reason we don't do it is because we are still confused, blind, shrouded with hate, anger, racism, mommy issues.
In a 2014 interview with former President Bush, Hannity asked him why he consistently refused to criticize his successors. Take a look at his response.
Why did you make the decision? I mean, I could sit here all day and try and get you to comment on President Obama, and I'm not going to get anywhere.
Correct.
Because I've known you. I know you very well.
Yes, you do.
Why did you make that decision? Because I'm sure you have a lot to say. We talked politics before we came in. You're very engaged and aware of what's going on.
I'm very aware of what's going on. I don't think it's good for the country to have a former president undermine a current president. I think it's bad for the presidency, for that matter.
And joining me now with reaction, Salem radio talk show host Larry Elder and former chair of the Council of Economic Advisors to President Obama, Austin Goolsbee. Good evening, gentlemen. You know, it is rather shocking that a president would come out and criticize a president the way we've seen President Obama do it. So I am going to start with you, Austin. You know, there's a book, The President's Club, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and it documents the unique relationship between presidents where, you know, the sitting president will have communications with foreign presidents because their experience is so unique, having shared the Oval Office and those incredible decisions and burdens that they carry. And so there is a relationship that they have. But President Obama, from the last week or two that he, you know, of the race, he took every day to go out and campaign against Donald Trump. He did it in the midterms. It's unheard of. Is it good for the country, as George Bush just said?
Well, I think he kind of makes two things. I think for sure, it's Thanksgiving's tomorrow. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, let's hope that everyone tones down the kind of personal rhetoric and to refer to mommy issues. I think stuff like that is beyond bounds. Now,
well, and Austin, what would people say if I referred to President Obama as having mommy issues or daddy issues?
Yeah, but now wait, Judge, the thing is, you know that this is in the context of the President of the United States now saying some outrageous things about both President Obama.
What is he responding to?
Well, for example, President Trump calling President Obama the most ignorant president in the history of America.
And when did he do that?
President Obama was not born in this country.
Well, no,
there's a long list.
But
and
the
the
birther is a separate
own
issue
family
from
saying
years ago.
outrageous things about the president.
Oh, come on. Oh, so you're saying he's justified in continuing the narrative?
No, he's not justified. I'm not, Judge. I'm not saying he's justified. He shouldn't do that. I respected George Bush's approach. I think that's the approach President Obama should take. Vice President Cheney was much more aggressive and negative about the Obama administration for the entire time.
Well,
and I respected George Bush's approach more.
Okay. So I'll go to you. Let me go to you, Larry. What say you?
We're talking about presidents, not vice presidents. And Obama undid the signature achievement of George W. Bush, and that was the war in Iraq. When George Bush left office, he assumed that there was going to be a stay-behind force of between 5,000 or 10,000 troops, had predicted what would happen if there was a vacuum. Obama comes in, pulls out every single troop, and George W. Bush didn't say one word as things got worse in Iraq as he predicted. It is certainly true that Vice President Dick Cheney said something, but George W. Bush didn't say a word. Ronald Reagan retires. He goes to Simi Valley, doesn't say a word. George Herbert Walker Bush goes to Kennebunkport, doesn't say a word. George W. Bush goes to Crawford, Texas, doesn't say a word. Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama never stopped talking. A very different perspective, Republican versus Democrat ex-presidents.
And you know what, Austin, he may have a point. It seems to be the Democrats coming out to, and I have to say, go ahead.
Well, I don't think that that's quite accurate. The only thing I'll say is
wasn't accurate.
Donald Trump is in the sense that Barack Obama did not mention President Trump by name. Now, President Trump, nobody in the country wants to take a lesson in appropriateness and lack of insult, the reasons not to insult people from President Trump. He campaigned, his entire campaign was built on personal insults of his opponents and speaking about the extreme stupidity of everyone in the government.
But that's not the issue, Austin, with all due respect. That's not the issue we're talking about. We're talking about a president who comes out during midterms and during his the end of his office to continually attack the president of the United States. And that is the issue.
Is something different.
Yeah, but now he's not campaigning. It's after the midterms, Austin. I'm going to give you the last word, Larry Elder.
Okay, I'm going to say, Austin, if it makes you any happier, Austin, when President Trump retires in January of 2025 with his 50 million Twitter followers, he will probably have a thing or two to say about his successor.
Well, we'll see about that.
True. But happy Thanksgiving, guys. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes, gentlemen, to both of you.
You too.
All right.
All right. You were at this Obama event yesterday.
Yes.
You know the president, the former president, intimately.
I had lunch with him at the event.
One of his biggest fundraisers, et cetera, et cetera. You were there. And the former president is saying that racism and mommy issues are contributing to lack of progress in the United States, in his own words, Obama. You were there.
Listen, you have to first understand the audience. It's an audience of about 500 community organizers, civic leaders, and those people that really are about promoting good. There is a fork in the road in this country. It's clear. You can go down this path of isolationism and nationalism and populism, or you can go down the path of doing good and giving back and civic engagement and community organization, and I'll take the path of doing good. So in my opinion, who he's speaking to, the women of, the Girls Global Alliance, the My Brother's Keeper, there's a whole group of people that are really forming together, young people that want to give back to the society. So I think, this little statement was more or less said in what I would say in some ways tongue-in-cheek.
He didn't name the current president.
Right. Look, I think it's kind of silly. If we're going to talk about racism, I have a mixed-race family, and the identity politics, I think, is one of the biggest drivers of racism. So I would throw that in there if I were President Obama, and it's telling that he didn't.
Very interesting, Brad.
Outraged by it. We have the first biracial president who missed a great opportunity to bring this country together because of who and what he was, half white and half black. If anybody has mommy issues, it's the president. I've never heard him talk about his mom, President Obama. And to allege racism and mommy issues, and he was talking about the president, is beyond the pale.
You think that that the president, the former president, I should say, did not well, did not mention his mother deliberately?
No, I'm just saying, if anybody has, I've never heard him talk about his mother ever in a public forum.
We should just
so if
be
he's
clear.
alleging somebody has mommy issues, perhaps he should look at himself.
I'm just going to say into the holiday season, you're much better than that. And we should just be clear. You should read his 2 books, which is all about his upbringing.
Let's leave moms out of it and bring the politics back in it. Here he is talking about 2020 and the possibility of Beto O'Rourke and what he thinks of him.
It felt as if he based his statements and his positions on what he believed. The reason I was able to make a connection with a sizable portion of the country was people had a sense that I said what I meant.
Interesting. Obviously, he's seen as a rising star in your party.
Yeah, there's no question, and I was quoted on this in the recent Politico article on him, that the excitement around Beto O'Rourke is probably nothing like we've seen since RFK and Barack Obama. There is a huge electricity in the air. The grassroots just can't wait to support this guy. Whether he will run, whether he will be able to get through a primary, whether he could be our next president, we have no idea. But there is no question, someone who is literally a Democrat that has done that well in Texas, there is certainly a national map for him.
But he lost.
He lost. It's hard to stay relevant when you don't have a platform. So what's going to be interesting to see is how does he stay relevant? What does he do? Does he run for office? Does he start a foundation? He's going to have to keep himself in front of the public eye. The question is, what's his next move?
Yeah, I agree. I think also one of the reasons that he's attractive, one of the reasons a lot of Democrats, including President Obama, was attractive when he first ran, is that he doesn't have a record. Really, you know, he was a state senator, so people can project on them things that they want and see what they want to see. I'm a Notre Dame alum, many bad years in football, and you'd always hear the coach saying, well, we've got a great offensive line, or we've got a great quarterback, or a great receiver, and they would still lose. You know, at the end of the day, you've got to put points on the board.
I mean, there's something to say, just to segue off of what Bill just said. The Democratic Party has not elected a president since JFK over the age of 52. So they like young and aspirational. The Republican Party has not had someone under the age of 55. So I would agree, we like hope, we like change, we like aspiration, we like excitement, and, and the Republican Party defers to experience. And so we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.